Hello, everyone. I think we're on. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning into the webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about the most requested topic from your feedback, which is topical authority. And we have touched on topical authority in previous webinars with various examples, but this webinar is going to be dedicated only to topical authority. We're going to cover the theory because we need to know the theory before we can apply the steps. So we're going to try and definitely keep it within under an hour. We've never actually achieved this before, but today we're going to try, and I think we'll do it today. And it will include some Q&A, of course. Now, with me today to unravel this mystery is Daniel, CEO and co-founder of WriterZen Technology, which is the company behind WriterZen. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Hoss. Very nice to be here again, and hi, guys. Again, hopefully today we'll keep it exactly on the hour. And I mean, it's a very exciting topic. Topical authority has always been the topic that a lot of people have been requesting. I think we both Hoss and I have discussed about this, and we realized that first we need to go back to the fundamental, and perhaps we can discuss the logic. What is topical authority, especially when it comes to search engine? What is the mechanism behind? And so when you know how it works, and perhaps then you can utilize the tool. The tool will never be the one can replace you. I think it's always about like, oh, I need to use my understanding and then utilize the tool to really determine how I can kind of successfully take over or win on search engine.
Exactly. It's the whole thing. It's the whole teach a man how to fish versus give a man a fish. If you teach him how to fish, then he can fish for life. So, we were going to do a practical example, but when we thought you need to know the steps regardless of the tool, which also means that you can use any tool to do this. But once you understand the steps, then applying those, using tools are just going to amplify that. Okay. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So let's start with a definition. Oh, by the way, thanks, Dan. I know you've been super busy, more busy than your normal busy self. So thanks for always being here so we can extract all the information we can from you.
Thank
You
you.
keep coming back and we keep getting all we can. So thanks very much for that.
No worries. This has been my pleasure.
Okay, so let's start with a theory, with a definition. So topical authority is, as the word implies, having authority on a topic. So, for example, your doctor is an authority on medical issues, hopefully. So you would take your doctor's advice on medical issues before you took the advice of a web designer on medical issues. Okay. Now, when it comes to online, topical authority refers to the perceived authority of a website. Okay, so if you have strong topical authority for e-commerce, then Google sees you as an expert and as a resource for all things e-commerce compared to other websites. And that's a key distinction, compared to other websites, which means that you don't have to be an absolute expert. You don't have to be an expert on an authority in the truest sense of the word. You just have to know a little bit more than everybody else around you. Okay, so when you translate that into content, it means covering the same content as the top competitors, but in more depth and covering more of it. Okay, hopefully related topics. So an easy way to visualize this is to imagine two websites that cover exercise. So website A has 1,000 articles about exercise, everything you can think of about exercise, kettlebell exercises and free body weight exercises and squatting, the whole thing. Now, website B also covers the same thing, but it also covers other topics that relate to exercise. It covers nutrition to help you get the most out of your exercise. It covers supplementation for the same thing. It covers rest and sleep. Okay, and it can branch into other things like accessories for exercises, like mats for certain types of exercises, and all kinds of things. So you can see that website B covers a lot more than website A. So you perceive website B to be more of an authority. Okay, so for all intents and purposes,
May I add here a little bit? As you can, if you look at the example, you'll see that the two websites actually represent two ways of doing SEO. The first way of doing SEO is typically you focus on your core competency. So like website A, this is exercise. These are all the exercise I'll do. And then you build the depth of content on that particular core competency that you have. So that's one way of doing it. But as search engine evolve, and there's so many other websites doing exactly what website A are doing, which you just focus on your core competency, and then you build the content depth with those over time. It's not enough to kind of have a comparative advantage over. And slowly, the second type of website, which is website B, and a good example of this would be HubSpot. So you start seeing website like HubSpot pop out of nowhere and start winning organic traffic from all sorts of topic. And you start realizing, okay, in the beginning, HubSpot was kind of like website A, right? You only focus on marketing and sales and some of the things that they are selling. But then slowly they start to expand horizontally over to create more of the topic in a more vast variety. And as the topic engage, for example, it start with marketing, and then it go with marketing for startup, and then it go investment for Series A, Series B startup, and then some challenging part of converting users or converting clients, and so on and so forth. So as those topics expanded, they can link it back to their core competency, and also they can build the depth on that as well. So the more of the horizontal topics that they are building, the stronger the root that they also having in their content depth. So that's kind of a better way, a good way to look at
Mhm.
that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as Dan says, as search engines evolve, and this is the thing, Google. This is about Google's revenue, protecting Google's revenue, or rather, Google protecting its own revenue, because Google doesn't care about your website and about your rankings. Google only cares about the user. Google makes its money on search from the ads, the display ads, and the only way to make money from display ads is to have people using the search engine in the first place. And the way it does that is by serving the best content it can find for a given query. So when you cover more topics than your competitors in more breadth, in more in deeper and more related topics, then you stand a good chance. A good way for Google to see which is the best content to serve is by using topical authority, by exploring the depth of your content. Because if it only has website A and website B and they're both identical, it's very difficult for a search engine to tell which website is actually serving the best content, because they both cover 1,000 articles on exercise. So topical authority is going to help you do that. Now, Dan, in the last webinar, you actually explained topical authority in a great way. You talked about owning a certain percentage of the market, of the search market, and I am terrible at maths. I'm like the worst person, the worst mathematician, if I can call myself that, ever. But it even made sense to me. I thought it was a great way of explaining that. Could you go over that again? Was your take on how you don't have to, you just have to figure out, in fact, you used Keyword Planner to figure out more or less, where the bulk of what kind of searches were being done on a certain query.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you talked about, yeah.
sure. I think one of the things is we have to kind of go back to the fundamentals of how Google look at the market. So Google look at any market, almost like, let's come back to the exercise market, right? Let's exercise topic. So if you look at exercise as a market, you start seeing that Google want to measure the total kind of demand of the market, right? The total demand of the market typically are made up of the search volume of every queries that contain in that market. So exercise, kettlebell exercise, exercise in the morning, exercise for diet, exercise, so on and so forth. Each of those keywords have the certain amount of search volume, and each search volume represent the size of that demand in a given month at a given location. So when you break that down, when you look at it that way, then if you Google look at, let's say, exercise market, so in the core part of exercise market are made up of every queries available from all sorts of way, from for that made up of the whole market. And then if you look at that way, then typically in that market, Google will then look at all the website that are trying to index for all the queries available in the market. So let's say if you are a website trying to rank for that, you want to signal to Google that, hey, Google, I know the market size, I know all the needs in the market, right? And I know majority of the market, let's say 50% of the people are looking for information, how to do certain things. And I also know that a lot of people are considering between different type of exercise. And I also know that a lot of people, only after they do that, they decide on buying a certain product. So by knowing those, and by knowing all the demands that are the perceived demand in the market, you could, if you could show Google and signal to Google, hey, I'm trying to target this, and I'm providing solution, which is from the type of content that match with the kind of intent with the buyer journey that user have. If they're looking for information, I provide them with how-to guide. If they're looking for consideration, I give them comparison piece, review piece. If they're looking for authoritative blog posts, I provide them with expert invitation blog. You know, I have backlinks over with other website, and also if they're looking for making decision, I provide them with landing page that have very strong offering, that is very short, very sweet, very good for them to make the decision. My website design is clean. People go in there, they enjoy, and they click on the go to CTA. Now, all of that are signal. All of that are signal you want to tell Google that I am the authority. The reason I am the authority because I know what users are looking for, and I know how to provide the right content to them at the stage where they belong, right? So I would assume if there's in the market of a million search volume, if you can cover up to like 50%, 50%, that's huge in a in a market. So you look at all of the keyword that actually make up about 50%, and you look at the buyer journey, you look at how it is, and you start to plan your content plan accordingly. I think that's a very good start to establish yourself as topical authority. I mean, of course, there are other metrics that you have to measure as well, which is now the moment you start establishing and you want to tell Google that, hey, I cover not only the main, which is a very comparative keyword, but they also cover all of the smaller phantom needs, right? All of the smaller keyword, less comparative, and I show up all over places, right? And also, even with the phantom keyword, I provide content quality enough that people actually stay on my site and they spend time on reading my content. They jump on from one to the other kind of piece of content within my website. Then it's a very good indicator that you are authority in your space. I mean, it's a very logical way of looking at it, I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. I think it really helps seeing another perspective, and which is a very data-centric perspective that you always bring to the table, because then it helps us see a different example and how a search engine might actually interpret those signals, and how what we do on a website actually translates for a search engine. You're like the search engine whisperer, you know. Yeah, so that's really cool. So let's move on to why we need topical authority, and it's pretty obvious, but it's actually deeper than that. There's a lot more to it. And before I go into that, let's quickly cover some of the reasons why people put off using this strategy, because it is probably hands down one of the best SEO strategies you can deploy, especially for sustaining rankings long term. If you have big topical authority, strong topical authority, then you stand a very good chance of being, immovable. So, some of the reasons that people put off this is because it can seem daunting to cover a topic in a lot of depth, especially at the very beginning before you've even done your research. If you think, okay, I'm gonna start a blog on exercise, and then you think, oh God, I have to now cover nutrition and it's a rabbit hole, because nutrition alone is just a huge, never-ending bucket. You have nutrition for someone who's diabetic, you have nutrition for someone who's insulin resistant, you have all kinds of different diets, and certain diets support different types of exercises. A cyclist eats a very carb-heavy diet. Somebody cutting, bodybuilding, that's cutting is going to have a mostly protein diet. So it's very it can be daunting, and um, here's a way to look at it. If you need to create 100 articles, let's say, just to keep the numbers easy, just to be seen as a bit of an authority on a topic, and you think that sounds like too much work, I'd rather just do one article and then one article on something else, then over time you're still going to create 100 articles. But because you didn't do it the right way, then you're not going to have the benefits of topical authority. You're just going to have 100 random articles. So you're still going to create the work in a different way, and it only feels like a big task because you're looking at the entire content cluster. You're actually planning it. That's why it looks like a big task. Not having a plan doesn't feel like a big task because you have no plan, but it's also going to get you nowhere. So you may as well do it properly, because you're going to end up doing the same amount of work anyway. Um, so another reason that it might be tempting to pass on this strategy is because it can be tedious gathering all the topics. Let's say, for example, you're going to create a blog on exercise, and you think, okay, nutrition, supplementation, and sleep. Well, there's three big topics, and they're all topics in their own right, but in this structure, they are subtopics of exercise, because you're going to link them to that. They're going to support your main topic. But then, as I mentioned before, it's a rabbit hole. You go into those topics, and you can create so many subtopics within that, and that can be tedious. And we've all done this manually if you've been around long enough. But now you have tools to do this. WriterZen, for example, has a topic explorer. You just plug in your seed keyword, you press a button, and boom, out come all the topics you should consider covering. Okay, so it's actually the excuse of, oh, it's too much work. It just isn't valid anymore, because what used to be hard and tedious is now easy and fast. It's just one click of a button and boom, it's there. So you have a topical map created at the click of a button, which means that, again, there's no excuse not to do this properly. Um, and the last excuse I can think of is actually creating the content. Again, it's much easier as a writer to think, I'd like to just write one article on one thing and another one and have variety. I don't want to write about the same thing in multiple angles. But now, thanks to AI, that is also easy. And as Dan demonstrated in the previous webinar, you can select a load of clusters and then create articles in bulk, right? Again, at the click of a button, and you have good enough articles, and your only job then is to go in and humanize them, and you just make them even better and personalize them. So that excuse goes out the window as well. So it's actually easier than it's ever been. So the building blocks, the things that you have to do in order to prepare for building topical authority, are now easy. Okay, so there's actually no excuse. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to add here is, I mean, if you just start out, you like you were sharing, you just start out. I think the key is, it's like when you go into a battle, you can't just right away try to win every single battle. You have to pick your battle, right? So if, like, for example, if you do exercise, you can't just right away you want to win the whole thing, right? Nutrition and so on and so forth. It's too much. So I think the key here is that you do a very well in-depth research on one single niche within the niche that you are working with. And so you say, earlier we were demonstrating niche tiny house, right? You can actually go in there, and then you go and then you start looking at all the topic that tiny house kind of covered from your competitor, and then from there you pick one based on your research that you think, hey, this one is less competitive. It has quite high search volume. It has very strong potential to do organic marketing. It's not brand dominant. Majority of people are in awareness space. So then if I write content good enough, they will stay into my site. So you have to build your credential. You have to build your authority slowly. But then it has to start from somewhere where you build a pillar of content that's strong enough, but focus on one. And then you can expand it over. So that from this single pillar of content, and then you can go to, okay, now I go second pillar, third pillar. Well, you can do it concurrently if you have the resource. But I would say if you have less resource, you just start out with a new website. That would be one of the things that I would suggest.
Man, that's a great way to manage overwhelm as well, because when you're staring at 60 topics, and then you start doing keyword research for 60 topics, you end up with a huge cloud of clusters. So again, if you just focus on one, you note down all the topics that you want to cover, but then you just focus on one and you say, this week or this month, I'm just going to focus on covering everything about this particular topic. And you just focus on the clusters that you come out with and those topics, and then you start to broaden your content.
Yeah.
So that's a great way. They say the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And I think that's a project management saying, and it's exactly this. It's a big task, but you just break it down into little pieces, and that's the way that you can deal with it. Okay, so let's go over the benefits of topical authority. And now there's so many that I've actually made a quick list for myself, because otherwise I will, if I just rattle them off from memory, I will forget two or three, and they will be the best ones. Okay, so obviously,
We forgot to make a slide. After
do
this,
you know,
we'll actually compile this into a slide and then attach it into in the link to the webinar.
that would be really good, actually, and then everyone can watch or rewatch the webinar and actually go through the slide, and it all
Yeah,
make a lot of sense. Okay, because this is
yeah,
this is theory, but this is, as I said at the beginning, you need to know this, rather than, if we just show an example, then it's easy to just get caught up on the tool and how this bit works and how that bit works, and not the actual theory. If you know the theory, then you can apply that. Okay, so higher rankings is obviously one of the big benefits of topical authority. So sites with greater topical authority, for the reasons that we've explained, tend to rank
mm,
higher in search results for relevant queries. Because Google favors those websites, because Google is trying to give the best content to the user. Okay, so more traffic from related searches. Um, when you start to rank for a lot of searches about a topic, you sometimes start to rank for keywords that you're not even targeting in your content, because, and that's a great sign, by the way. That means Google is beginning to see you as an authority, and it thinks that your content may be able to help that user with that query. Okay, so that's again another benefit, and we'll talk about what to do in that situation. That's a great situation to be in. Increased click-through rates. When Google sees your website as an authority, then it's going to feature it more prominently in the SERPs, and that's going to lead to higher click-through rates. Brand awareness, being seen as an authority, obviously builds a lot of trust with your user base, and that's going to be good for your brand. Loyalty and engagement. If your site is seen as an authority, then there's a higher chance that people are going to come back to your site. So, for example, if somebody's trying to get out of debt and you have a website or a blog that covers getting out of debt, and it has tools and resources and stories and case studies and how to do this and how to do that, um, then somebody who's actually trying to deal with that at that point is more likely to keep going back to your site, um, because they see it or they perceive it as an authority on that topic. Monetization opportunities, and this is where sites with higher authority can attract bigger brands and brand deals and sponsorships, and they can command a higher payout because they already have an audience, hopefully a loyal audience. Okay, and that matters a lot to advertisers. Of course, the key here is that you have to be providing value to your audience, or you'll just burn your audience if you're just going to start spamming them with things that they don't want. Um, Competitive advantage, and this is a huge one. This is where having a strong topical authority can actually deter other SEOs from entering your space. Part of as SEOs, when you're trying to get into a space, one of the things that you do is you look at the SERPs to see who's there, who you're up against, because you're trying to gauge the likelihood of where you might be able to rank. And if you see somebody there with massive authority, or you see two or three massive players, you think, "Oh, I'll pass on this. It's just too much work. There are easier spaces that I can get into." Okay, so that protects your ranking, actually. So that's a great reason to do topical authority. And last but not least is one of my favorite ones, which means that when you have strong topical authority and you start to rank for, a whole cluster of keywords, you often don't need. This is not always the case, but you often don't need backlinks. You don't have to rely on those like you do if you don't have any topical authority. And in fact, even if you're in a competitive niche, and you have strong topical authority, you may only start to rank at first for very low volume keywords, but it's cumulative. The traffic across all those keywords starts to build up, and if you start, as Daniel said before, if you're engaging your users on your page, and Google starts to get those signals saying this is good content, that all helps boost your authority. Okay, and you start ranking for bigger keywords. Um, Now you may still need to build some backlinks in some spaces, but you will need less backlinks definitely if you have topical authority. So it's a good place to be in a competitive niche with lots of topical authority, because then you can assess whether you need some help from backlinks. Okay.
I think
Um,
I think people will also want backlink from you. So that's one of the things that you want to
this
show.
Yeah.
It's like people refer your source when you can cover that many keyword, and particularly when you rank for a lot of keyword and you establish as authority. Um, People when they do research they will recognize. And one of the things that website with authority continue to get more authority is the fact that people refer you as the source
mm,
in a lot of their content to gain authority for their site.
yeah,
Right. So
absolutely.
like the reason why HubSpot now they don't really run backlinks, particularly because they first for one they have a lot of PR content. So website and big news would actually refer to them. They already IPO, so they have very strong kind of presence on majority of all the platform, and also their quality of content is so good that people refer it as the source of authority,
Mm,
right? Oh, I wrote this, blah, 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 or this is based on HubSpot, this article. And that link refer back to, uh, it's the external link of their website that go directly
yeah.
into HubSpot. So it's kind of like you want to establish yourself slowly into the zone of authority in that end. Um, and another thing I think you were mentioned also that I thought I should also double take on that is um, the ability that you accumulate traffic by gaining topical authority. The thing about traffic accumulation is it takes a bit longer because you have to consistent bring your game consistently. So it's like content bring out. I mean, everyone could start doing keyword research. Everyone could start doing cluster. Everyone would start using AI to write, but not a lot of people would consistently show up day in day out, not seeing the result that you want to see, and the result usually will come only after like 4, 5, 6 months.
Yep.
So that's the timeline you want to have in mind, and also it requires a bit more discipline and I think resilience to really kind of churn in like, hey, today I'm going to deliver three, tomorrow's three, the days just slowly, and more topic cover, more keyword cover. Eventually, when you cover enough keyword and queries, and you signal that to Google, they will notice.
Mm,
You will start seeing your rank quite obviously, and it usually pick up quite fast.
it
So
does.
yeah,
It does. It's something you mentioned there about the people asking you for links. You actually start to see this, and this is a good sign actually. You don't need that much authority for people to start noticing you. And there's a lot of agencies now that actually handle the outreach, because nobody likes to do outreach. Let's face it, they're all, as I call it, begging for links. But you start getting those emails, as Daniel said, and you start getting emails saying, "Hey, I work for such an agency,
yeah,
and I'm trying to secure a link on your website for such a client."
yeah.
And that's a good indication that people are already beginning to see you as a worthwhile website to get a link from. And if people are already seeing that, then Google is definitely already seeing that as well. Um, okay, fantastic. So let's get into how to actually do this, how to actually build topical authority. So we're going to go through the steps here. So this is what it looks like. Oh, by the way, it's worth mentioning the timeline, because that's really important. And Daniel just mentioned the timeline. You have to be realistic about this. Everybody knows that SEO is a mid to long term game. It just doesn't happen overnight. And yes, you're going to see videos everywhere saying how I ranked in 24 hours, but come back in 12 months and tell us, where are you ranking now? And also, if you can rank very quickly for things that don't really have a lot of competition. We're talking about real rankings in decent size, competitive spaces. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. And just to give you an idea and quantify that timeline, my own website, when I first launched my website was I think it was about 2017. I was selling on Amazon. I was an Amazon FBA seller, so I started talking about that, and it was a competitive space. So I just started churning out long articles, long form. We're talking 3,000 plus words. I think one of them was 5,000. That was the average, and you know it, a long form will allow you to capture more keywords. And I knew it was a long-term game. It wasn't about ranking quickly for any particular keyword, especially when everybody was after those keywords anyway. So I just started creating very useful guides, step by step, how to do this, how to source products, how to make money on Amazon, how to, do research for your products on Amazon, blah blah blah. And it was between the 3 and 6 month timeline that I saw on Search Console that I was beginning to get impressions for all kinds of keywords related to Amazon FBA. And a lot of those keywords I wasn't even targeting. And as I said before, that's a great indication that now Google is beginning to see you as having some authority on this topic. And Google is saying, hey, somebody is searching for this. You don't talk about that specifically, but I think your website may just
Yeah,
be able to help this user.
yeah,
That's why you're getting those impressions. So Google Console is your friend when you're trying to build topical authority, because the thing to do there is to actually get those keywords and then add them to your content, either
yeah,
to your existing content or create new content, and then you start to see traffic. And that was the timeline. It was within 6 months. But as Daniel says, you have to keep showing up. And if you understand that that's the timeline you're working with, then showing up shouldn't be that much of a difficulty. You just have to make a commitment and say, let's just keep doing this, and don't expect anything. And the plus side of that is topical authority is very powerful. So I started getting a lot of traffic eventually for these Amazon FBA searches, and we're talking like thousands of visitors per month, and on a relatively new blog. And it wasn't because I had one article, it's because I had a cluster of articles covering all different aspects.
mm,
Okay. So let's where were we? Oh, so we're going to the steps now, the steps of how to do this. So it starts with topical or topic research. Okay. And this is the bit where you sit down and you think, I want to create a blog on exercise. What topics can I think of that relate to this in some way? You've got sleep, nutrition, and supplementation, and then you go down the rabbit hole, and you start listing all the topics that you can think of, and this is the
Well, I
overwhelming.
think over here is a two-way you want to look at is usually one. The first way is you look at your competitor. So you search the term, you see the list of competitor, you read through their content, you read through all the topic that they already have, and then you kind of list it out on a piece of
Mhm,
paper, right? So that's one way. But the second way is, so you research is like looking at your competitor is one way, and then looking at the search demand is the second way. So search demand is keyword research. When you put your term in the keyword explorer tool, for example, or you use any other keyword tool, you have a list of different keyword. Then you have to learn how to kind of classify them into what you think is a group of topic that is worth considering
mhm,
as a topic you want to cover. So then you map the two together, and then you kind of have a mapping of like, okay, this with this topic, this is what my competitors are trying to write about, and they are trying to focus on. These are all the topic that my end users are searching for. Now you want to map them together, and you start seeing that this one's the process of almost intuitively you have to do, right? You have to determine because you're doing marketing, so intuitively you have to decide a lot of stuff. You have to decide whether or not the topic that you look for the topic in which your competitors are targeting aligning with the topic in which your users are asking for. Then you have, okay, this is the topic that they already target end users. There's a supply and there's a demand of this market of this topic. So those kind of things that you probably have to go through a little bit of mapping, I
mhm.
would say.
Absolutely, yeah. That was the next step. You list down the topics that you think, and then you start looking at your competitors, because they're already ranking for the things that you want to rank for, so they're doing something right. And you go through their content, you sift through the content, you pick apart what topics they're covering. And another thing you can do is look at the categories, and from that you can a lot of times get related topics. You can see the structure of their website, and yes, it's tedious work. But this is where tools come in. And WriterZen, for example, you've got the Topic Explorer, and I think we covered in an old webinar how that actually works, and it's doing a lot of computation in the background. It's looking at all the top competitors, going through their content, and actually providing you with a topic map, saying these are all the topics that you should consider covering for this. So that's the first step. You're gathering your topics, your topics and subtopics that are going to support
Yeah.
your topic. And as Daniel said, they have to relate. So you're not just talking about nutrition in general. You talk about nutrition as in relation to exercise. What kind of nutrition, what kind of things to eat for this type of exercise and for that type of exercise, and that's how you make it relatable. Um, the next bit is going to be your keyword research. Once you have all your topics, you're going to have a seed keyword for each topic. Let's say one of them is, for example, indoor or purifying plants. And then you start doing your keyword research as you normally would. You plug in that keyword and you get all the related keywords. And you then optimize those keywords. And, depending on what stage of your SEO campaign you're at, you're going to have a different optimization strategy. So if you're starting with a brand new website with little to no authority, you want to go for low hanging fruits. And in Keyword Explorer in WriterZen, you can use the golden filter to help you do that, and different filters there like the all in title, and go for really low competition keywords. Now, next, you'll want to cluster your keywords. You've got a big list of keywords. You want to cluster those keywords, and those clusters are going to translate into articles. Okay. I'm losing my voice today. I've been singing too much. That's a joke. So now this used to be the last step before content creation, but Keyword Planner came out, and it's just changed the game, because now there's an extra step that makes things a lot better. Because in Keyword Planner, you can now figure out searches by intent, by micro intent. You can, as Daniel said before, you can focus on one particular stage of the buyer funnel. And you couldn't, it was very difficult to do this before. And you certainly couldn't do it quickly. So you would just optimize your keywords, you cluster them, and then you start focusing on content. Now you can actually zone in on exactly the best keywords to target for any given situation in Keyword Planner before you even start creating your content. Okay, so the next step would be to create content. And again, you saw in the previous webinar how you can actually select all the clusters that you want to cover and create either content briefs for the writer to go through, or you can create the entire content. And we've talked about how to deal with that and how to then go in and humanize it. And again, as I said, aim for long form content, because that's going to be your best strategy when it comes to
Yeah,
your
I
topical.
mean, in terms of, I want to add here on the long form content is long form content at would be most effective with pillar page content. So the reason we break it into topic and cluster is because topic typically should serve as almost a pillar page. So a pillar page is where you start to build your main piece of content, and from there sprung out are all your subtopic. And so subtopic would be, each subtopic should be an article, and it doesn't really have to be like 3 to 5,000 words, but it should really focus on the list of keyword in that cluster. Now then your work is to link that to your main keyword and link it to your pillar page, and then link it to other subtopic content piece as well. So that's internal linking work, right? So pillar page itself have to be very long. It have to cover all your cluster and all the keyword that you have. To show Google that this is the main pillar page I'm going to target. And in this pillar page, I'm going to explain in detail with each of the cluster article. So then so on and so forth, going down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's internal linking. That was the next point. Again, you've got all the content that you're going to create. You haven't published it yet. You've just got all your content. So now is a good time to actually plan your internal linking structure. And I like to do this in something like a spreadsheet, not because I'm old fashioned or anything like that, but because I like to see everything that I'm working with on one screen. You could use Figma for this. That would be a really nice tool to use. I've also used mind mapping software to do this because I can make every node of the mind map an article, and then I can create relationships, which are basically an arrow, and actually add some text in there with my anchor link. So that's a great way to plan your internal linking. Um, and next, after you've done that, is it's time to start publishing your content. And if you're using WordPress, you can actually set up a lot of content and set it on drip. Aim for at least one article a day, or let's say three a week at the very minimum. Um, if you're starting with a blank website, with a brand new website, it's a good idea to start with at least 20 or more articles to start with, because the first time Google comes around to index your site, it's a good opportunity to get enough content
Yeah,
indexed to give Google an idea of what you're actually talking about, rather than just having one article, have Google come around and say, well, this is a low priority site, I'm not going to be here for a while.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a good idea to launch with as many articles as you can on a website. And that's a good way to establish yourself. Okay. Now, the next step is optional, but you can acquire backlinks from trusted websites. If you don't mind doing outreach and that's your thing, then that's fine. I tend to just focus on social media, push content out through social media, link back to my content, and make it as helpful as possible. And that can help with indexing content in the early days and a little bit with the backlink count. One thing I used to do every time I launched a website was to do some guest posting, and there are services out there that you just have to check that they are legit. Don't get them from Fiverr. And I'm not picking a fight with any Fiverr creators, content creators, but if you pay $5 for something, you're going to get what you pay for. Make sure it's a legit service if you're going to do that, and don't overdo it. So I used to do about 5 blog posts, guest blogs, and a press release, and that used to work really well. But then you've got to be careful as well. If you've got a brand new website, it's not normal to have a lot of links coming in from different websites when you've got no traffic. So you've got to be careful. Don't go mad on this, especially at the beginning. But do definitely use social media and link back to your content. Um, then it's down to monitoring your rankings and your traffic. Your content is on drip. You're keeping your eye on Google Search Console to see what impressions you're getting for what. And Google Analytics, of course, that's going to give you an idea of your footprint, your organic footprint, and how it's growing over time. Just keep in mind that the timeline, okay? Um, and there are other things that play into the ranking equation. It's not just topical authority, although that's a fantastic strategy. Engagement is going to play a big role. So one thing to do is, if in Search Console you see that one of your articles is now getting traffic, that's your first winner. So you want to go back in there and make sure the focus changes now from trying to get traffic to making that engaging. So you
Mm.
go into the article and you try and make it as engaging as possible. You use images, charts, videos. You make sure that your content is really good. Take a look at HubSpot if you want to take, as Daniel said
Mhm.
before, if you want to see how good content works. And because now you've got traffic to that page, now the game is keeping that traffic on that page as long as possible and serving them well. So they don't have to do more searches searching for the same information, which then signals to Google that your content didn't actually cover the query. And that's a bad place to be in. So you make sure that you're covering, and you use internal linking to other related articles. You try and guess what the next question is going to be. Okay, now I know how to do this. Now I need to know, you know, let's say, for example, in finance, you're telling somebody how to get out of debt, and then you say, okay, you can shift your debt to cheaper cards, so credit cards. And the next question might be, well, where do I find those? So now you have an article or a link to another article on your blog, which is related, on how to find the best card deals. And how to go about that, and then you can mention, for example, you need a good credit score. You need to improve your credit score in order to get better deals. How do I do that? Well, that's the next question. Well, here's a link to another sub article on how
Yeah.
to improve things you can do. So, and that's essentially how your internal linking is creating a journey for the user, and how that is boosting your engagement. Okay. Um, and when you start to see results, then you start to update those pages, the pages that are winning. Again, you can always find related videos. They don't have to be your own videos. They might be, let's say it was on in the finance space. There might be a video on YouTube from somebody who speaks about finance, and they might be an authority with like a couple of million subscribers. That might be a good video to put on your page.
Yeah, that's
If it's
definitely a good
related
idea.
content.
You
Yeah,
wanna
so
you wanna bring related source that
yeah,
are of authority to bring on your side. Don't be afraid in
absolutely.
the beginning that they're gonna steal your traffic, because you want their authority, you want
Yeah,
their referral, because you want to gain authority on your own side by inviting other source of authority over to your side. So having those, having the name, having the social media handle, having the videos, having whatever the source that you could bring it over to your site, usually would be a very good way to add on your authority.
absolutely. And it is a funny thing though when you're starting out and you think, oh no, I don't want to give my traffic. I don't want to
Yeah.
tell them about this guy.
No one know you.
The thing is, Google already knows about that guy. Google is
Yeah.
not stupid. So you're only doing yourself a favor by adding that content on to your content, because Google can see that you're actually bringing in other authorities on the topic and saying, well, this guy says this and this woman says that, and that can all help you. So Google already knows these people because they are authorities. So you can leverage that, and it means you don't have to create a video, and especially if you're not an authority, your video is going to have 7 views. You don't want that video on your
Yeah.
on your page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say this is easy work, but it's certainly a lot easier than it used to be. And once you get your research done and you cluster your keywords and you create your content, um, the better work then is going in and adjusting that content, which you would have to do anyway. If you're a blogger, then you're gonna, before AI, you had to stare at a blank document and come up with an article, and that could take you half a day. If it could take you a couple of hours if you were an expert in the topic, if you knew what you were writing about. Now you have very little work to do comparatively, because the AI can put together a very good article. You just have to go in there now and just make it yours. Okay, um, so that's the bit of work that you have to do, and once you do that, then it's all it's a waiting game. You're dripping content out. You're watching you're looking at your rankings and so on. So it shouldn't feel like a full-time job, because
Yeah.
it's not once you get past that point.
Yeah.
And all that effort pays off, because the ROI on this is tremendous. When you dominate the top spot or the top three spots, and you're getting traffic for a whole bunch of terms related to a topic, that feels really good. That's your job well done. Anything else you want to add to this, Dan?
Um, no, I think you cover very well. I think, but it will be better with after this we have our team build up a slide and then add on to them. Because then this is definitely, we're very sorry guys. A lot of sharing, a lot of talking. They're all very very valuable, but I'm sure it's quite hard for people to follow without a visual cue. So
Yeah,
I think that's what we'll do after this. We'll embed this into underneath the video form. You will be able to download the file and you will be able to follow us, at
yeah,
least to see the definition itself, and then why do you need it, and then also some of the way for you to do it. Perhaps in our next kind of webinar, we're trying to really walk you through some of our practical way of utilizing WriterZen to do that.
yeah,
Starting with researching on topic of using topic discovery, and then also another way of researching topic using keyword explorer and keyword planner. So it's just a different way of utilizing the tool, but again it's a combination between tool utilization and ability to really understand the nuances of marketing, and kind of making sense of all these things with how search engines are working and so on and so forth. So I think that would be a very good ending for
mm,
today, since it's quite a lot of theories, quite a lot of of
Yeah. Th-
you know.
think think of this as a podcast
Yeah,
to
it's like a
today,
more like a
and
podcast.
it's
We
a
just have like
podcast,
a
yeah.
conversation.
The presentation will help crystallize all this. You'll have the main points with nice graphics,
Yeah.
and just to mention quickly that topical authority is not a new thing. It's certainly not new, but it has started to get a lot of attention in the past year or two. But at least in the early days of Google, nobody was doing topical authority because the game back then, Google was quite dumb then, and the game back
Yeah.
then was to just find a few keywords, blast a few articles, and then move on to the next. And as a result, there is a lot of legacy content online. There's a lot of legacy websites, and I've worked with a lot of clients over the years who had massive websites with little to no authority, topical authority on any single topic because they just had the random articles on everything, and it was a mess.
Mm.
Um, but this also means that there is a lot of opportunity for anybody doing this properly because it's very
Yeah.
hard to work with a legacy website and trying to fix. It's a lot easier to just start with a blank slate. And Daniel, I'm actually curious on this because you have got a lot of space. You got a lot of experience in the enterprise space with enterprise clients. Is topical authority something that they're using? Is it an underutilized strategy still in that space, or is that
Oh, it's a big question everywhere. I think it's always the questions. I think because and what I observe is that particularly clients in the West, in the more developing market, developed market like US, UK, Australia, they have a um, higher focus on establishing not only just the quantity of the content in which they need to cover, but also the really deep quality of the content that they need to make sure they're right. Because I think one of the key things they realize is that if they don't invest in quality content now, when they are able to rank for things, they are not going to be able to maintain that position for very long because everyone are fighting for that spot with very high quality, and that's why usually UK, US, or Australia, for example, they are willing to pay big money for content being written that is of high quality. So they spend quite a little big money on their budget in terms of the content they write to put on their website because the content in their website also reflect their brand, right?
Mm,
They can't just simply write a piece of content that is so underrated because you can't really compete on that end over a long period of time. So, content authority or topical authority over in those kind of market with big enterprise clients are very different requirements. I want it to be strong in quality. I want it to be really tailored to what the intent of my users. I really want to make sure that the things I produce will match with what users are looking for, and it will show Google and signal Google that I know what I'm doing. Big brands act differently than small brands. Big brands, they already have their brand authority over the internet. Like if you talk
mhm.
about Apple, Apple doesn't need any backlinks. The brand is so vast and so big already. So their entity, it's a strong entity. So same with many other brands. So what they do is they, instead of trying to expand it more, they will actually work on to utilize and optimizing their current content, ensuring that every piece of content go out will cover the most amount of intent and the most amount of authority over the space that they're covering. Um,
Mm,
and that's different approach, right? Understanding the nuances of what user looking for is their priority. But then in other market or in newer climate of website, if you're new, it's very different. I want volume. I want to go fast. I want to go quick. I want to generate a lot of AI generated content. I don't care if maybe I rank and then I lose my ranking. At first, I need to earn that traffic first, right? So when your intention are different, your outcome are different, your action are different. So therefore, your outcome will be different as well. So I think that's the key here on which I want to make sure, like when you talk about topical authority, is different with smaller, just established brand,
mhm.
smaller website, with comparatively with bigger clients, enterprise or even big agency. They have to really stand for the quality of their content. So
Yeah. They've already got a reputation to keep, so they
yes,
can't
yes,
afford to put. And maybe that's a good practice to take from the big brands. If you're starting out, and just ensuring that your content is just hold yourself to a high standard,
Yeah.
and produce great content and just act like the brand that you want to be. That's probably a good thing to adopt from that. So that's really interesting. That okay.
Yeah.
So I think we've done really well today with time. I think we've covered the the theory. Those are the nuts and bolts. And as Dan says, once you have the presentation, you'll be able to just crystallize that information. And it's simple when you break it down into different sections, but it's super powerful. Okay, this is one of the best strategies that you can deploy in SEO. So I think we'll go to Q&A. I think we've got some questions
Yeah.
today.
Let me show the screen here. All right. So as you can see, the first screen is I'm new to the game, recently grown my interest in SEO, so I'm still learning. Love the new webinar, by the way, very informative. Thank you very much. Can you provide some insight into metrics or indicator that slightly signifies successful development of topical authority? I think again, it can come back to the size of the market that you can cover, or the intent of the market that you can cover. So if the market is 100,000 keyword search, you know that you can target roughly about 40,000 of them, which is 40% of the market. And then you know the majority of the intent are in awareness and consideration. So then you pick out those kind of intent, those kind of content, those kind of queries belong to that kind of intent and belong to that buyer journey. And then you show Google that, hey, out of all the things here, the majority of people asking this question, and I cover those things. You index all of them and you do very good linking together. That's what I mean by coverage. So if you can do the coverage of a single sort of market size, typically you should do pretty well. That would be a very good metric, is the amount of market cover over the total amount of market size, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that would be a good kind of indication, first of all. Second thing would be the amount of variety in the topic that you will cover. So the amount of pillar pages you do, just like Horst was saying earlier. Say you exercise, did you do enough research to figure out beyond exercise what are the subtopic majorly that support exercise, like sleep, nutrition, so on, diet, so on and so forth. If you can figure out those topic, as many as you can, and then you can map it all out, and you can indicate that through your sitemap to Google. Well, that's another way for you to indicate that you cover pretty good topical authority. But again, the size of the amount of topic you cover and the amount of keyword, which is demand that you cover in each topic, really indicate a very strong indication of topical authority. Are
Brilliant.
there any potential pitfalls, Ryder? Sorry, do you want to add anything over there?
Yeah. Other than that, you can then see the results of that in your Google Search Console. That's your best friend when you're starting out building a topical authority. Just keep your eye out on what keywords you begin to get impressions for, because that's
Yeah.
what Google thinks you are relevant for.
Yeah, you want to pick up on those. Are there any potential pitfall writers should be cautious about when building topical authority? I think one of the key thing is to make sure you engage with as much relevant keyword as possible without overstuffing your keyword.
Mhm.
So it's like, like Horst was saying, I mean, the content 3,000, sometimes you rank for keyword you didn't even mean to target. And a lot of time that happen if you look at your Google Search Console. So Google will look through your content constantly and then look for all the key relevant keyword that you indicate to Google. And that's why Content Creator is such a helpful tool. In step 2, you'll see the list of all the queries that we crawl and then we suggest to you. You can indicate all those queries in your content as long as the content makes sense, right? As long as the content can make sense and it's quality and it's targeting the right kind of audience and the right kind of content. So those would be one of the first pitfall that I would think. And another thing would be lacking of long form, really long form pillar content. You need to make sure that piece of content has to be super quality, long, strong, unique selling point, unique experience, unique access, and then it cover all the cluster you want to build for. So it's a systematic things. When you send this kind of content brief to your content writer, you need to make sure it's very clear. What is the content about? What is this kind of content? How many keywords are they going to be in? How many keywords you should be included in each heading, so on and so forth. As you should be very clear when you send this brief to your content writer and making sure that they will do their job exactly and accordingly.
Yeah, spend the time on that brief if you are working with a team, because once the work is done, you're still going to have to pay for it. And if it's not right, you're going to have to go back, and then that time has already been spent. So do spend a bit of time doing that. Another pitfall I would say as well, when it comes to topical authority, is not getting your internal linking right, or not actually using
Yeah.
internal linking, which is a big mistake. Because if you have 1,000 articles, you have the potential, you have a lot of space to play with, to really use internal linking to a massive degree. And within that, there's another pitfall, and that's your anchor text. You've got to be careful with that, not to point 1,000 links at your pillar article with the same anchor text.
Yeah.
That's a different webinar, but that's one of the pitfalls. You just got to be careful with the anchor text, and but yeah, using internal linking, or rather not using it, that's one of the pitfalls
Yeah.
that you want to avoid.
Hey guys, I want to know there are specific industry or niches where topical authority holds greater importance. I think just like my sharing in the previous webinar, you'll see that there are different industry where brand take a huge role. For example, car industry or banking industry. Those are the kind of industry where brand take a huge role in your decision to purchase or decision to trust authority. Like if you
Mhm.
go on banking out of the car, for example, you don't want to look for information from a brand of a car that unknown, you never heard of. You like, but if you see that it's Toyota, information from Toyota website, or from Lexus, or from Ford, from GM, suddenly the authority is authority in that topic, or in that industry, very much correlate to the brand that represent that. Just like credit card, just like banking, so on and so forth. Those are the kind of industry that is very brand dominant. So when we were doing the test last time was with the list, which is a niche called tiny house. And when we look at the niche called tiny house, we start to see that the amount of brand keyword, which is keyword that contains some brand in some sense, are like 10 or 15% compared to the whole market. Now that's a very good start where you know
Mm.
that, hey, it's not very brand dominance, meaning that the playing field are equal. And then you look at the non-brand keyword and you start seeing all of the main top ranking or top research keyword, like top search volume keyword, and you see the ranking for it, and you look at the website that rank for those, and you start seeing, hey, it's not very strong website. There's some the block even ranking for this. Oh, this is a very good opportunity. So it's like one of those things that you really have to research. But I would say the first step is brand versus non-brand ratio, and then the domain authority over non-brand website. See how many of those key domain that are dominating or not dominating. If they're not so dominating, that would be a very good place to start with your topical authority.
Yeah, and there's a step through that process in the previous webinar, which where you went through exactly that, what you just described. And just to add to that, if you find a space where it's not brand dominated, that's a huge opportunity for you to use topical authority and become, uh, boost your brand authority, and then you become that authority in that space. Where people log in, or people, sorry, do a search, and they can see that you dominate that niche, and then you become the brand that people start to trust.
Yeah. I think the next three questions we should reserve for the next webinar, where we
Hmm.
do actual showcase of how you use the tool
Yep.
to figure out the topic. So the three question is, what are some effective strategy developing, which you can mention earlier in the
Hmm.
slides. We'll probably share that. The linkage between discovery topic to a lot of discussion. How can we use WriterZen? So again, we'll do that in the next webinar. How to use WriterZen topic. Same thing. Same thing with this question: how to use WriterZen create topical map, handle cluster keyword group. I think so. This question here, please try to treat next webinar and how to handle a cluster keyword group where we found a mix of intent, but contemporary suggests how to guide. We need some other. So this is one of the things that we will actually launch out in the next couple updates, where we will actually suggest you the content type based on the best performing content type of competitor. So that way, it's no longer irrelevant. Sometimes right now, because we utilize AI, a lot of time when AI kind of suggests this kind of content, they will suggest things that are not as relevant and is based purely on the AI model. That's the things, AI will give you an answer that make it sounds like good, but it sometimes is not really that quality. So I think the next few updates, you will see this result. Um, I'm a newbie and my field of expertise are very high competition, but I would like to post content about it in Arabic, where there's less competition in this language. Do you think WriterZen can help me with this task? I think the first thing you want to start is utilizing our keyword research and topic discovery in the language with your topic in Arabic language. I'm not sure how well our tool is or how well Google is with the language itself, but you have to try out. And then again, follow our few previous webinar and do the same thing but with Arabic language, and see how the tool pull out. I mean, I can't guarantee you 100% the tool will actually churn out the the kind of content that you want because it's such a niche language. But I mean, you got to try it out and maybe let us know if that works.
Okay, fantastic. That's the end of the Q&A. And you know what?
Yeah,
I think we've done very well on time. Is it,
yeah. We just only 10 minutes past.
it's a good job we don't run a train service.
Yeah.
But no, that's fantastic. So we'll wrap it up here. Again, we'll have that those slides done, and those could actually help with the next webinar when we do a case example. You can actually go through, keep those slides and use those as you go through the case example or as the practical, and that'll be good. So thanks again, everybody. Keep the feedback coming in because this is how we decide what content to create for you. This webinar being a perfect example, you all asked for topical authority, so here we are talking about that, and
Yep.
I'm planning more content like it. Okay, so
Awesome.
that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much again. Do check us out at the WriterZen Academy, of course, if you haven't already. And any questions, send them in as usual. And look out for an update with the slides once they're ready. And that should be quite soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Hart.
Thanks,
Have a
Daniel.
great rest of the day. Bye bye.
I'll see you in the next one. Bye
Bye.
bye.